Guys, we are looking at an autopen scandal that we've never quite seen in this country before. Because you see, nobody ever did stuff like what Joe Biden did before. This is just unbelievable. And now it's caught the attention of the Oversight Committee in Congress. And now James Comr, Representative James Comr, is demanding an investigation. And I'll tell you, I'm just going to tell you right now, if this actually goes through, there's going to be some heads that really roll. I mean, think about all those pardons. Those pardons will be null and void. Think about all the decisions that Biden made, a few too many, that maybe he didn't make, that would then be null and void. We'll get into the legal complications of all this. But first, here is Representative Comr speaking last night.
Say that, no, they just talked to Joe Biden and he was tip-top. He was in great physical condition. He was at the top of his game. Now they're coming back covering their tracks saying, yeah, it looks like he was in mental decline. Well, we all know he's in mental decline. What we need to know is who was calling the shots at the White House. And one thing that was also mentioned on your show thus far is that when you sign a document that has legal implications, it has to be signed personally. It can't be signed by an autopen. You use autopen for proclamations and mass letters and things like that. So I think that if we can understand more about the autopen and whether or not Joe Biden authorized it, I think this could lead to a lot of those executive orders being kicked out in court.
All right. And when do you expect these subpoenas to go out?
Well, the letters have already gone out to the staffers as well as Dr. O'Connor. So if we don't hear anything from them in a week, then I would expect to start seeing subpoenas.
And if they fight the subpoena, what do you do?
We'll go to court. Jesse, they're going to try to plead executive privilege, and they're lawyering up, and we're ready. That's why we're making sure every I's dotted and every T's crossed. The best thing that's happened in the last week with respect to this is all the new books that are coming out and all the former Biden staffers who are trying to cover their tracks. You're going to see people like Pete Buttigieg who think they have political futures come forward and say, you know, we didn't know anything. There were gatekeepers. They wouldn't let us speak with Joe Biden. And the more that comes out, the easier it's going to be to get to the truth.
You better believe it, right? I mean, all these books and all this information. Unc Andy, thank you so much for your generosity. You've been a member here on the channel for 2 months. Florida loves Trish. I love Florida, believe me. I also love the fact that you guys have 0% income tax and really good weather. Anyway, you saw that, right? So James Comr means business. They're going to be sending subpoenas in a week or so. And if they fight the subpoenas, they're lawyering up on the other side. I mean, look, guys, I kept saying it over and over again. I haven't played this one in like forever. I am going to show you a soundbite that I played you maybe about 1.5 years ago, which just, I think, said it all. This is Joe Biden at some kind of gathering where he's supposed to be talking about the economy, and all of a sudden the reporters start asking him questions, and you can tell the poor man is clearly struggling. I mean, people are talking about elder abuse and all kinds of things at this point, because you watch this clip and you tell me if you think he knew what he was signing when he was signing. Watch.
I have a lot of questions. I better not start the questions. I'll get in trouble.
What's your message for Super Tuesday voters? Everyone please move this way. Super Tuesday, say, do you have a message for voters?
Thanks, come on. Thank you so much. Thank you all.
You see him? He's out of it. He's absolutely, positively out of it. This was one of those clips that just really hit me. And I guess it was from March 2024. I mean, I was like, wow, this poor guy is, you know, and unfortunately, like, we've probably all seen it. You've had loved ones that have suffered from this. And whatever you want to call it, that was some kind of decline. And everyone knew. Now we know, hey, thanks, Jake Tapper. I mean, you were too moronic and duplicitous to admit it to begin with, right? Over on CNN, just when you figured you can make a buck after the fact, you decided to come out with a book, but everybody's having to admit it now, yeah? You know, the guy was not playing with a full deck of cards. And if he wasn't playing with a full deck of cards and everything was being done by autopen, and it naturally leads you to the question, well, who was the autopen? And America did not elect the autopen. Therefore, are any of those things that he was signing even valid? Here's Alina Habba. She first brought this up in March. She's now the U.S. District Attorney, of course, over in New Jersey. And she was one of the first ones to come out and poke around here and say, this may not actually even be legal. And she's right.
They should have handed out more preemptive pardons, you're saying.
Listen, by the way, I wonder if those were auto-signed as well, because I would challenge the validity of it. You never know. Listen, the guy didn't even know what he was doing, but I'll tell you, the pardons, he knew what he was doing. I said it months before. He's going to pardon himself. And yes, I almost said to the president, listen, in the joint session speech, why don't you ask everybody that got a pardon to just stand up and tell us why you got a pardon.
Well, that was bizarre at the time, right? I mean, all those pardons that they were doing were kind of bizarre because they were pardoning before the fact. I mean, that had never been done before. Why are you issuing pardons? Like, these people actually haven't been accused of a crime. So that was bizarre. And now we learn that, he wasn't really the one doing the pardoning. I mean, it was just the auto pen, and therefore it was somebody else entirely, which brings you to these questions, I should say, were Biden's orders and were his pardons actually illegal? Because you see, there's this part of the Constitution, Article 2, that says the president must, quote, take care that the laws be faithfully executed. That means the president, the person that we elected. Now, I mean, if you want to put in the 25th Amendment and if you want to have Kamala take over, you could have done that, but we don't really know who was doing anything because everything was on autopen and he was clearly out of it. Quote, if Biden was not authorizing nor mentally competent to authorize orders that were signed by autopen, those documents, ladies and gentlemen, could be challenged as invalid and as unconstitutional. And this is what Trump keeps getting at, right?
Biden, look, it's a very sad thing what happened, but we're going to start looking into this whole thing with who signed this legislation. Who signed legislation opening our border? I don't think he knew. I said there's nobody that would want an open border. Nobody. And now I find out that it wasn't him. He auto-penned it. Who was operating the auto-pen? This is a very serious thing. We had a president that didn't sign anything. He auto-penned almost everything. He opened the borders of the United States of America. And I kept saying, who would do such a thing? Allowing criminals to pour in from all over the world, not just South America, all over the world. They came in from Africa, they came in from Asia, they came from the Congo. The prisons in the Congo in Africa, these are rough people. The prisons from the Congo are empty. You know where they are? They're in this country. Who would sign this? Nobody would sign it. No sane person would sign it. You know who signed it? Radical left lunatics that were running our country, and the autopen signed it. And they didn't want him, and they were disappointed in getting him because they wanted Bernie Sanders. And then after about 2 weeks, they said, wait a minute, this is a gift. He'll do anything. We're going to use the autopen. And they used the autopen and everything. He didn't approve this.
Wow. So, if he wasn't approving these things, again, who was? And I know the joke is it was Mr. Autopen, OTTO. We keep talking about that. Again, I think you have to ask these questions. Pardons, treaties, executive actions. All of this, ladies and gentlemen, could now be challenged in court. Dun, dun, dun. And it will be challenged in court. I have no doubt, given what we just heard from Comr. And again, is so much from Donald Trump lately is speaking to this. He spoke out about Biden's health and was making the point yet again that the man was not in the right state of cognitive ability in order to sign some of the things he was signing.
Do you want to respond to President Biden being diagnosed with cancer? Are you going to call your predecessor?
I think it's very sad, actually. I'm surprised that it wasn't, the public wasn't notified a long time ago. Because to get to stage 9, that's a long time. I just had my physical. You saw that. You saw the results of that particular test. I think that test is standard to pretty much anybody getting a physical, good physical. We had the doctors at the White House and over at Walter Reed, which is a fantastic hospital. I did a very complete physical, including cognitive tests. I'm proud to announce I aced it. I got them all right. You proud of me? Yes, your husband would be proud of me for getting them all in. It's a little risk. If I didn't get them all right, these people would be after me. It would be not a good situation. But I think, frankly, anybody running for president should take a cognitive test. They say it's unconstitutional, but I would say in that particular case, having a cognitive test wouldn't be so bad. But when you take tests, medical tests, as a male, that test is very standard. I don't know if it's given to everybody, but it's given just about. And it takes a long time to get to that situation. Now, I think to get to a stage 9, I think that if you take a look, it's the same doctor that said that Joe was cognitively fine. There was nothing wrong with him. Well, he said, if it's the same doctor, he said there was nothing wrong there. That's being proven to be a sad situation. And the autopen is becoming a very big deal. You know, the autopen is becoming a big deal because it seems like that maybe was the president, whoever operated the autopen. But when they say that that was not good, they also, you have to look and you have to say that the test was not so good either. In other words, there are things going on that the public wasn't informed, and I think somebody's going to have to speak to his doctor. If it's the same, or even if it's 2 separate doctors, why wasn't the cognitive ability, why wasn't that discussed? And I think the doctor said he's just fine, and it's turned out that's not so. It's very dangerous. Look, this is no longer politically correct. This is dangerous for our country. Look at the mess when you're talking about all these questions on Ukraine and Russia. That would have never happened. As an example, if I were president, would have never happened. The other thing is you have to say, why did it take so long? I mean, when this takes a long time. It can take years to get to this level of danger. So it's a very, very sad situation. I feel very badly about it. And I think people should try and find out what happened, because I'll tell you, I don't know if it had anything to do with the hospital. Walter Reed is really good. They're some of the best doctors I've ever seen. I don't even know if they were involved, but a doctor was involved in each case. Maybe it was the same doctor, and somebody is not telling the facts. It's a big problem.
In other words, you can't be getting to that kind of stage. I think his point is stage 9, where the prostate cancer is actually now in your bones, without having had some kind of attentive medical care along the way. And so the question becomes, either you didn't get the care you needed, and heck, you're the president of the United States, so you should have, right? Because otherwise our national security is being put at risk if nobody's actually attending to his medical needs. And if you did get the medical care you needed and people knew that he was this ill, then why were they lying to the public? And so either way, you're in a bad situation if you were on Team Biden and you were part of this. And moreover, the country's now been put in a bad situation because legally this is going to turn into a total quagmire. Again, going back to this question, were Biden's orders, were his pardons illegal? If he wasn't actually signing them, if he wasn't cognitive and part of this, then you can challenge every single one of those in court. So guess what, Hunter Biden, you're up. Guess what, Anthony Fauci, you're up. Liz Cheney, Adam Schiff, I'm looking at all of you. And I'm also looking at all the policies that he signed and put into place and all these deals. So it's going to be a mess. And let me just say, Trump is willing to take that on. Don't kid yourself. And Comr's willing to take it on. You know why they're willing to take it on? Because of everything that they have been through and Donald Trump has been through and this country has been through. They're willing to go there. And so now all bets are off, and you're going to see a lot of fireworks in the coming week or weeks, ladies and gentlemen. And I think you also got to ask yourself this question. Just exactly who needs to pay the price? I mean, who in his inner circle was authorizing this? Dr. Jill comes to mind, does she not? You know, Dr. Jill, who is out there enabling him every step of the way, wanted him to keep running along with one Hunter Biden. It was so obvious. I played you the clip earlier of him not being able to handle the incoming of the reporters' questions. He used to do that a lot. He'd zone out. You saw the clip, right? I've played it for you before of the Italian prime minister having to guide him away from the parachuters because they're about to take a picture at G7, and all of a sudden, he's like a little kid. He starts wandering off to look at the parachuters, and she brings him back, and he tries to put on his sunglasses, and he's moving so darn slow, and the whole thing is obvious, right? Everything is so obvious. But as much as we would play these clips, and I would tell you that here on the show, and I tried to warn the Democrats, you probably shouldn't be running him, they wouldn't listen. And instead, we were told these were nothing but cheap fakes. We were cheap fakes for running them, and that somehow we were the ones wrong. I mean, like, this is gaslighting on steroids. And then, of course, America saw this.
I've changed the law. What's happened? I've changed it in a way that now you're in a situation where there are 40% fewer people coming across the border illegally. That's better than when he left office. And I'm going to continue to move until we get the total ban on the total initiative relative to what we can do with more Border Patrol and more asylum officers.
President Trump?
I really don't know what he said at the end of that sentence. I don't think he knows what he said either. Look, we had the safest border in the history of our country. The border, all he had to do was leave it. All he had to do was leave it. He decided to open up our border, open up our country to people.
Yeah. I mean, that wasn't even the worst of it, right?
Happening. They're in a situation where they, in fact, pay 8.2% in taxes. If they just paid 24% or 25%, either one of those numbers, they'd raise $500 million, billion dollars, I should say, in a 10-year period. We'd be able to wipe out his debt. We'd be able to help make sure that all those things we need to do, child care, elder care, making sure that we continue to strengthen our healthcare system, making sure that we're able to make every single solitary person eligible for what I've been able to do with the COVID. Excuse me, with dealing with everything we have to do with. Look, if we finally beat Medicare.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump?
Well, he's right.
Oh, it cut off at the best time. Remember his line was, well, he's right, he sure beat Medicare. He beat it to death. I mean, this was unbelievable, right? And yet, there were people, believe it or not, the next morning on Morning Joe that were trying to make excuses, like one Douglas Brinkley, who's the go-to Democrat presidential historian, who actually had the audacity to say this.
If you read the transcripts of Trump and Biden, you'll see a coherency to what Biden was trying to get across.
Okay. Oh, yeah. If I just read the transcripts, I'll be able to read through the lines and figure that one out. I mean, I don't even know as the people that were transcribing it could figure it out, because some of the words were just like mumble jumble. I mean, he was giving Kamala a run for her money on the word salad, for goodness sakes. And yet, you want to talk about enablers? I mean, this was like Lady Macbeth style. You had Jill Biden. I'm just sorry. You know what? I'm a wife. I'm a mother. I'm a daughter. I'm a sister. If one of my loved ones, if my husband had anything going on like that, do you think I'd be propping him up, saying, hey, buddy, go, 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 go? No, I'd say let's exit stage left. In their case, stage left. And let's ride out into the sunset and let's enjoy our time together and our grandchildren and try and have a nice life. But not Jill Biden. Right after that debate, she got up there, and of course he was toast, so she had to get the crowd going with this.
Joe, you did such a great job. You answered every question. You knew all the facts. And let me ask the crowd, what did Trump do? Lie! Yes.
Okay. So now the question becomes, what role did Jill Biden have in all of this enabling? Was she the auto pen? Was she the one getting stuff done? Was it her chief of staff that was running the show? Meanwhile, what was she doing to her poor hubby? This is something that came up. Take a look at this. I want to share with you one of my former colleagues actually over at Fox, a guy named Leo Terrell, who's now I think at DOJ, and he tweeted this out. So he's a member of the administration, and they're looking at this. Elder abuse, criminal charges. In other words, she most likely knew about his health problems. She knew something. I mean, she had to have known something. Again, we don't know the timing on the prostate cancer. We don't know, as you heard from Donald Trump earlier, I mean, it's kind of a shame either way. It's a shame because clearly he should have had better medical care. He's the president of the United States. Thank you very much. So that calls into question just exactly what was going on with his doctor. But if his doctor did know and they were hiding it, then that becomes a problem. And on top of it, you got to say, what was she doing? You know, putting him out there. It was like Weekend at Bernie's, right? Like it was hard to watch at times, really, really hard to watch. So they're going to launch an investigation. The autopen signatures may be declared null and void. There is certainly a legal argument to be made for that. Meanwhile, people that were pushing him are also going to be investigated for what they were doing. In other words, this thing is going to blow up in a big way. And you know what? You heard it here first because nobody's talking about this just yet. And I have a feeling it's going to get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And I know because Donald Trump is a dog with a bone and it's the right thing to do, right? You don't prop up somebody with a frickin' auto pen and decide, okay, we're going to put all this stuff into law and we're going to pardon all these people. That is not the way the U.S. government works. The American people elect the president of the United States. And the president is responsible, per the Constitution, for actually governing. And you can't have somebody else with him not knowing what's going on. I mean, that's when you have to invoke the 25th Amendment. If you're choosing not to, we've got problems, folks. This is huge. Absolutely, positively huge. Okay, you know what else is huge? What's going on the immigration front. And our friend Tom Homan, reminder, subscribe, share, like. We're growing big time here. I think we're coming up on 800,000. We're going to have a party when that happens, right?